You remember the young girl who vanished during the summer festival? A vibrant spirit who lit up Cedar Grove. Her disappearance marked the beginning of an eerie chapter that shrouded the town in whispers and shadows. 22 years later, an unexpected clue in an old yearbook threatens to unravel the silence that has haunted her family, sparking a desperate journey for closure that could change everything. Mehmet stood in the humid attic of his Cedar Grove home, the air thick with the scent of dust and old wood, mingling with the distant aroma of the ocean. His middle-aged frame had grown weary, not just from time, but from the weight of grief and guilt that clung to him like a second skin. It had been over 2 decades since his daughter Zeynep's laughter filled the summer air, and yet, on days like this, a fresh wave of grief crashed over him. In 1991, that summer day had been perfect, sun-drenched. The cobblestone streets of their coastal town, alive with kids running carefree. He needed to know what Kaner might remember, what secrets he may hold. Gathering his resolve, he drove to the rundown area of town where Kaner lived. It was a place that, despite its proximity to the bustling beach, felt cloaked in despair, as if the world had turned its back on it. Heart racing, Mehmet approached a nondescript house, its peeling paint and overgrown yard, a stark reminder of what had been lost. As he reached the porch, he noticed movement inside. Kaner stood by the window, his silhouette highlighted against the dim light. Then a chilling scream shattered the silence, and Mehmet felt his blood run cold, the hairs on his neck prickling with dread. He froze, torn between the urge to burst through the door and the instinct to retreat. A frantic scuffle was followed by silence, leaving Mehmet in a state of paralyzed anxiety. Gathering his courage, he peered through the grimy glass and saw something that made his heart plummet. There, scattered on the floor, amidst burr, his hands were shaking so badly he had to grip the windowsill to keep from collapsing. Then he heard it, a slow, ragged breath behind him, so close his skin prickled. He spun around, and the last thing he expected was Kaner, pale as a ghost, gripping a rusty hunting knife, his eyes wild and burning with something dark and twisted. "You shouldn't have come here," Kaner hissed, voice cracking like broken glass. Before Mehmet could react, Kaner lunged. The blade caught Mehmet's arm, searing pain exploding through his nerve endings. Mehmet stumbled back, blood spilling warm and sticky onto the floorboards. Panic burst through him like wildfire. This was no old classmate holding secrets. This was someone drowning in madness. Then, as Mehmet clawed for breath, Kaner's voice dropped to a chilling whisper. "You think I made her disappear? No, I saved her." Every fiber in Mehmet's body tightened as the words slammed into him like a freight train. "Saved her? What are you talking about?" he gasped, swallowing the metallic taste of blood. Kaner's mouth twisted into a grim smile. "Zeynep didn't vanish. She ran away. With me. And it's your wife you should blame." Mehmet's world shattered. His throat closed tight. "My wife? Lying? No, that can't be." But Kaner's eyes bore into him like knives. "Remember the nights she'd leave the house," Kaner said, stepping closer. "Secrets between them. Your perfect little family was built on silence. You were too blinded by your grief to see what was really happening right under your nose." Heartbeat pounding deafeningly in his ears, Mehmet's gaze darted around the room and stopped cold on a small, folded piece of paper peeking from underneath a broken chair leg. His fingers trembled as he picked it up and unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a letter in Zeynep's handwriting, dated a week before she disappeared. "Dad, if you ever find this, it means I'm already gone. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Mom wasn't who you thought she was. I love you, but I can't stay. The room spun. Mehmet sank down to the floor, pressing the letter to his chest, wretched sobs bursting out like a dam had broken. Caner watched him, cold and unreadable. Then, with one last glance at the carnage in the room, he whispered, "There's more, I swear. The truth's darker than you know." Suddenly, headlights flared outside. Voices shouted. Sirens screamed in the distance. Mehmet's blood froze. He looked up, and right behind Caner, out the cracked window, he saw her. Zeynep. Standing there, soaked and bruised, eyes haunted but alive. A scream tore from Mehmet's throat, but before he could move, everything flooded to black. What had she been hiding? Why had she come back now? And who, exactly, was still hunting her in the shadows? The nightmare had just begun. The headlights sliced through the darkness, casting jagged shadows across the cracked window pane. Mehmet's heart slammed against his ribs. He saw her, Zeynep, standing there, drenched, bruised, her wide eyes burning with a haunted kind of fury and fear. A scream exploded from his throat. Before he could move, before his legs could even catch up to his mind, everything went black. When Mehmet blinked back to life, cold sweat drenched his skin. The acrid smell of burnt rubber and bleach clawed at his nose. Voices shouted. Footsteps pounded wildly on creaky floorboards. But something was wrong. The room felt wrong. He wasn't in Caner's rundown house anymore. He was lying on a clinical white floor, sterile and cold. Bright fluorescent lights hammered his eyeballs. Hands, rough and urgent, gripped his shoulders. He jerked upright, gagging on dust and the metallic stink of blood. A woman's voice, soft but trembling, cut through the chaos. "Dad? Oh my God. You're awake." Mehmet's breath caught in his throat. He turned slowly. Zeynep was there. Not just standing at a window. She was sitting beside him, wrapped in a hospital blanket, eyes red, fingers shaking. The weight of relief crashed into him, but it didn't last. Her gaze flicked to the side, sharp, guarded. Why did you come back?" he croaked. Zeynep swallowed hard. "Because you need to know the truth." Before he could ask what that meant, a door slammed open, hard, fast, and a man stormed in, silhouette cutting cold through the blinding light. Mehmet's blood froze. It wasn't Caner. It was his wife, Sarah, pale, eyes furious, wild with something that felt like madness, mixed with dread. She pointed a shaking finger at Zeynep. "You think I let you go that easily? You think I didn't know everything?" Zeynep's jaw tightened. "You lied. Lied to Dad. Lied to everyone." Sarah's voice broke, cracking like ice on a frozen pond. "You're a traitor. All of you." Mehmet's head spun. What the hell was happening? Suddenly, Zeynep's phone buzzed, piercing through the noise. She opened it. The screen filled with a live video. A shadowy figure dragging something. No, someone, through a dark alley. Mehmet's stomach dropped. The face dragged into the light. Familiar. His own. He blinked, heart hammering. "Me?" he gasped, stumbling back. Sarah laughed, bitter and broken. "That's right. You've been hiding the darkest secret this whole time, Mehmet." Before he could argue, the hospital room phone shrieked off its hook. On the other end, a voice low and gravelly whispered, "She's coming back, and she's not alone." Zeynep's eyes locked on Mehmet. "You need to remember." His mind shattered. Pieces he didn't know were missing snapped into place. His perfect family never existed. Zeynep's disappearance, not a kidnapping, Not a runaway, but a cover-up. And him? The father he thought he was? The mastermind. Heart hammering like a war drum. Mehmet's hands shook violently. His vision tunneled. Sarah's voice cracked, a whisper up close, soaked in venom. I killed to protect us all, and I'll kill again. As the sirens grew louder, flashing red and blue bleeding through the blinds, Mehmet realized one horrifying truth. The nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, no one was innocent. The sirens' wail tore through the hospital hallway like a knife. Mehmet's breath hitched, heart thudding so hard it felt ready to burst through his chest. Sarah's words echoed in his ears. I killed to protect us all, and I'll kill again. The weight of those promises crushed the air around him. Suddenly, the door behind them slammed open with a deafening bang. Nurses and doctors flooded in, faces pale, murmurs rippling like waves crashing against stunned onlookers. One of the staff gasped, "Is this a family crisis? The police are already on their way." Mehmet's chest tightened. He scanned the room desperately, locking eyes with Sarah, and then with Zeynep. Then, out of nowhere, Zeynep's phone buzzed again. The screen lit up, this time displaying a new message. Look closely. The truth's worse than you think. A cold shiver crawled up Mehmet's spine. He was frozen, until a sudden metallic clang snapped him back. From the corner of the room, a figure stepped out with a steady, terrifying calm. It wasn't Caner. It wasn't Sarah. It was a man none of them expected. Detective Matthews. His weathered face was grave, eyes sharp, but his voice was calm, too calm. I think it's time someone told you all the real story. His gaze locked on Mehmet, ice cold, because you, Mr. Alcott, are not who you believe you are. The room fell deathly silent. Mehmet's head swirled. What did Matthews mean? Before he could speak, Matthews pulled a worn envelope from his jacket pocket and tossed it onto the floor at Mehmet's feet. Mehmet's hands trembled as he bent down, heart hammering in his ears. He slowly opened the envelope, and the world tipped over. Inside was a DNA report, the kind only meant for emergencies, the kind that confirmed one horrifying, impossible truth. Mehmet was not Zeynep's father. Gasps erupted around the room like gunshots. Sarah's face went pale, lips quivering. Zeynep stared, eyes wide, shattered. Mehmet's breath caught. His mind screamed in disbelief. All the memories, the pain, the guilt. Was any of it real? Detective Matthews stepped closer, voice low and brutal. Your wife lied to you, lied to all of you. Zeynep isn't your daughter. She was kidnapped from another family decades ago. The child meant to be raised elsewhere. And now, the real story is coming out. The floodgates broke. Mehmet's knees buckled. His hands gripped the hospital bed's edge, as if holding on for dear life. Sarah collapsed to the floor, sobbing violently. Zeynep's face twisted in fury and confusion. All these years, Dad, you never knew? Mehmet shook his head, rage climbing, tears burning his eyes. Why? Why wouldn't anyone tell me? Matthew's glance didn't waver. Because everyone's been keeping a dangerous secret. Suddenly, the hospital lights flickered. Phones rang off the hook, footsteps pounded the hall again. And Mehmet's phone buzzed. Another message, urgent and raw. Find the truth before she finds you. He looked up. Sarah and Zeynep were staring at him. But now the fear between them was different. Darker, deeper, full of suspicion. His own reflection trembled in the window pane, and behind it, something moved. Something waiting. A whisper in the silence. You weren't the father, but you might be the key, the one they're hunting. Mehmet's world crashed down, because now, the nightmare was not just coming back, it was hunting him. And the question screamed hotter than his pounding heart. Who really was Mehmet Alcott, and what had he been protecting all along? The siren's wail cut through the hospital hallway like a knife. Mehmet's breath hitched, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it would explode out of his chest. Sarah's words echoed in his mind, sharp and deadly. I killed to protect us all, and I'll kill again. The air felt suffocating, thick with tension. Suddenly, the door behind them slammed open with a deafening bang. Nurses and doctors rushed in, faces pale and eyes wide with alarm. One of the paramedics gasped, "Is this a family emergency? The police are on their way." Mehmet's eyes darted between Sarah and Zeynep, both locked in a silent, angry battle. Then Zeynep's phone buzzed again. The screen lit up with a new message. "Look closer. The truth's darker than you think." A shiver ran down Mehmet's spine. He was frozen. Just then, a loud metallic clang echoed through the room. From a shadowed corner, a figure stepped forward with calm, terrifying control. Not Kaner, not Sarah. Detective Matthews. His face weathered, eyes sharp but cold, voice low but steady. "I think it's time someone told you the real story." His gaze sliced straight through Mehmet. "Because, Mr. Collins, you're not who you think you are." The room dropped into a heavy silence. Mehmet's head spun. What could Matthews possibly mean? Matthews reached into his coat and pulled out a worn envelope, throwing it at Mehmet's feet like a condemned truth. Hands shaking, Mehmet bent down and opened it. Inside was a DNA report. Urgent, undeniable. Gasps exploded around the room like gunshots. Sarah's face drained of color, lips trembling. Zeynep stared wide-eyed, broken. Mehmet's breath hitched. He wasn't her father. Questions slammed into him. Every memory, every tear, every ache, was it all a lie? Matthews stepped closer, voice dropping to a brutal whisper. "Your wife lied to everyone. Zeynep wasn't your daughter. She was stolen from another family years ago. And now the truth is coming out." Mehmet dropped to his knees, clutching the hospital bed as the world tilted, breaking into shards around him. Sarah crumpled, sobbing loud and raw. Zeynep's voice cracked with fury. "All these years, Dad? You never knew?" Mehmet shook his head, rage and despair burning his eyes. "Why? Why hide this from me?" Matthews never blinked. "Because some secrets are too dark to face." Then without warning, the hospital lights flickered violently. Phones rang nonstop. Feet pounded the hallway again. Mehmet's phone buzzed. Another message, raw and urgent. "Find the truth before she finds you." His eyes darted to Sarah and Zeynep. The fear between them had grown into something different, sharper, colder, full of suspicion. Mehmet's reflection trembled in the window next to him. Behind him, something moved. Something waiting. A whisper filled the air. "You weren't her father, but you might be the key, the one they're hunting." Then, a crash. The hospital room door shattered inward. A figure stood there, cloaked in shadow. The unmistakable silhouette of Kaner. But he wasn't alone. Behind him, two grim-faced men stepped forward. Police, but not like any Mehmet had seen before. Their badges flickered faintly under the harsh lights. But something was off. Their eyes weren't just cold. They were hungry. Kaner's lips curled into a twisted grin. "This ends now." Before Mehmet could react, the officers lunged. Metal clanged. A struggle. Sarah screamed, raw, desperate. Zeynep shouted, "No!" Mehmet tried to rise, but his body betrayed him. Trembling, weak. Suddenly, a sharp pain in his chest. He looked down. Blood. Bright. Furious. Warm and sticky. A blade. He gasped and fell backward. Kaner knelt beside him, voice low and venomous. "You think I let this go? You're all puppets. Puppets in a game you don't understand. And I'm the one pulling the strings." Mehmet's vision blurred. Darkness crept in. "Why?" he whispered, barely audible. Kaner's reply chilled him to the bone. "Because she never left. She's been here, in the shadows, watching, waiting. And now the last piece falls into place." Mehmet's lungs burned for air. The nightmare exploded. No, it was morphing, fierce and alive. He barely heard the final words before oblivion swallowed him whole. "You're not just the key. You're the lock, the secret, the monster." Silence. And then the hospital lights snapped off. Complete darkness. A single voice echoed, trembling but clear. "Welcome home, Dad." The nightmare had only just begun. The sirens howled down the hospital corridor like a blade, slicing through thick silence. Mehmet's breath hitched, heart pounding so violently it felt like it might burst. Sarah's words haunted the air. "I've killed to protect us all, and I'll kill again." The weight of that promise thickened the room's very air. Suddenly, the door behind them slammed open with a thunderous crash. Nurses and doctors flooded in, faces pale, eyes wide with alarm. One paramedic gasped out, "Is this a family emergency? The cops are already on their way." Mehmet's eyes shot back and forth between Sarah and Zeynep, two strangers locked in a silent, bitter war. Then his daughter's phone buzzed again. The screen lit up, flashing a new message. "Look closer. The truth's darker than you think." A cold shiver crawled along Mehmet's spine. He was rooted to the spot. And then a loud metallic clang echoed sharply across the room. From the shadows in the corner, a figure stepped forward, calm and terrifying all at once. Not Kaner, not Sarah. Detective Matthews. His face was worn, eyes sharp and cold, his voice low but steady. "It's time someone told you the real story." His gaze cut straight through Mehmet. "Because, Mr. Collins, you're not who you think you are." The room fell into crushing silence. Mehmet's head spun. What could Matthews mean? Matthews reached into his coat and pulled out an old, worn envelope. He tossed it at Mehmet's feet, like delivering a death sentence. Hands trembling, Mehmet bent down and opened it. Inside was a DNA report, urgent and ironclad. Gasps exploded like gunshots around the room. Sarah's face drained of all color, her lips quivering. Zeynep's eyes went wide, shattered. Mehmet's breath caught in his throat. He wasn't her father. Every memory crashed down in flames. Every tear, every ache suddenly felt like a lie. The detective stepped closer. His voice dropped to a savage whisper. "Your wife lied. Lied to everyone. Zeynep was kidnapped from another family years ago. And now, the truth is finally coming out." Mehmet hit his knees, clutching the hospital bed for dear life as the world fractured beneath him. Sarah crumpled to the floor, sobbing raw and bitter. Zeynep's voice cracked with pain and fury. "All these years, Dad, you never knew?" Mehmet shook his head, rage and despair burning behind his eyes. "Why? Why keep this from me?" Matthews stared without blinking. Because some truths are darker than death. Then, without warning, the fluorescent lights flickered violently. Phones started ringing non-stop. Footsteps pounded the hallway again. Mehmet's phone buzzed once more. Another message appeared, urgent and raw. Find the truth before she finds you. His eyes darted between Sarah and Zeynep. The fear between them had mutated, sharp, cold, full of suspicion. Mehmet's reflection shimmered in the window beside him. Behind him, something shifted, something waiting. A whisper filled the air. You weren't her father, but you might be the key, the one they're hunting. Then, a sudden crash. The hospital room door shattered violently inward. A figure stood in the doorway, cloaked in shadows. Kaner. But he wasn't alone. Behind him, two grim men stepped forward. Men in uniform, but unlike any Mehmet had ever seen. Their badges flickered under the harsh lights, but their eyes were cold, hungry. Kaner grinned, a twisted, cruel smile. This ends now. Before Mehmet could move, the men lunged. Metal screeched. Bodies collided. Sarah screamed, raw, desperate. Zeynep shouted, "No!" Mehmet tried to stand, but his legs gave out, trembling, weak. Suddenly a searing pain exploded in his chest. He looked down. Blood. Bright, furious, warm, and sticky. A blade. He gasped and collapsed backward. Kaner knelt beside him, voice dripping with venom. You think I'm just some madman holding secrets? You're all puppets. Puppets in a game you don't even see. And me? I'm the one pulling the strings. Mehmet's vision blurred. Darkness crept in like an icy wave. Why? He whispered, broken. Kaner's answer chilled him to the core. Because she never left. She's been here the entire time, in the shadows, watching, waiting. And now, the last piece falls into place. Mehmet's lungs burned for air. The nightmare exploded into something fierce and alive. He barely heard the last words before oblivion swallowed him whole. You're not just the key. You're the lock, the secret, a monster. Still, the hospital lights snapped off. Pitch black. A single voice echoed, trembling but clear. Welcome home, Dad. The nightmare had only just begun. The hospital lights snapped off. Total darkness. A single voice echoed, trembling but sharp. Welcome home, Dad. Silence. Then, chaos. A deafening crash shattered the black like a bullet. Glass exploded. Metal clanged. Breathing caught in throats everywhere. Mehmet's lungs filled with burning pain as the hospital door burst open again, this time with brutal force. Footsteps thundered down the hallway. Too many. And then, a wave of voices slammed through the room. Shouts, angry commands, shots fired, screeches of tires outside. Everything spun. Mehmet tried to focus, but darkness clawed at his vision. Then, a cold, sharp flash. Pain burning through his chest. He looked down, blood pouring like a broken faucet. His fingers fumbled for the wound. The world blurred, then cracked open. A voice shouted right in his ear. Traitor! It wasn't Kaner. No, it was Sarah. Her face twisted in fury, drenched in tears and rage. You lied. All these years. You knew everything. Her voice broke the air, jagged and torn. The others were circling. Police, paramedics, witnesses, all frozen in raw shock. Whispers turned to gasps. Some, choking back screams. Zeynep's desperate sobs pierced the madness. Then Mehmet's head snapped back as a second gunshot rang out. This time, not at him. Someone behind the crowd went down. A nurse, her body crumpled, the floor blooming with dark red. Screams exploded. Panic swallowed the room. And just when the chaos reached a new level of terror, something else snapped. The overhead lights flickered back on in broken bursts. In the buzzing haze, Mehmet's gaze crashed onto a reflection in the shattered glass by the hospital entrance. A man, wearing a badge. But the badge wasn't from any law enforcement anyone recognized. Cold eyes locked on Mehmet, and then tilted into a vicious smirk. Detective Matthews, but no longer the solemn officer anyone trusted. His disguise dropped, because under the flickering lights, his skin was pale, too pale. His smile stretched cruel, almost inhuman. And then, chillingly, he whispered to Mehmet, low and sinister. "You really have no idea, do you? You think you're the victim here?" The room spun, breaths hitched. Zeynep held her breath. Sarah's knees trembled. And Mehmet felt, deep in his gut, that everything he believed, everything he was fighting for, was about to be twisted into something far darker. Matthews took a step forward, then another. His voice dropped to deadly calm. "Because I'm the one who orchestrated this from the very start. The puppet master behind every move. And soon, you'll all see and pay." But deafening silence froze the room. Then, Matthews pulled a small, slender, silver object from his coat. A syringe, filled with thick, dark liquid. He advanced, every eye locked in horror. The nightmare wasn't over. It was just a curtain drop away from slaughter. And as Matthew's arm swung up to strike, Mehmet's last shred of hope shattered beneath the sharp, agonizing sting. The world exploded into screaming darkness. "Say goodbye," Matthews hissed. Then, silence. The hospital room fell into a deadly quiet so thick it suffocated. And somewhere, almost too faint to hear, a new message buzzed on Mehmet's phone. "They're coming, nowhere left to hide." And Mehmet's heart shattered in emptiness. Because this nightmare wasn't just returning, it was hunting. And this time, no one was safe. The nightmare had only just begun. The hospital lights snapped off. Total darkness. A single voice echoed, trembling but sharp. "Welcome home, Dad." Silence. Then, chaos. A deafening crash shattered the black like a bullet. Glass shattered. Metal slammed. Breaths caught in throats everywhere. Mehmet's lungs burned as the hospital door slammed open again, this time with brutal force. Footsteps thundered down the hallway, too many to count. Voices shouted, sharp commands. Tires screeched outside. Everything spun. Mehmet tried to focus, but darkness clawed at his vision. Then, a sudden, searing pain exploded in his chest. He looked down. Blood, bright red, hot, sticky. A blade. He gasped and crumpled back. Kaner kneeled beside him, voice low and venomous. "You think I'm just some crazy guy holding secrets? You're all puppets. Puppets in a game you don't even see. And me? I'm the one pulling the strings." Mehmet's vision blurred. Darkness crept in like a cold wave. "Why?" he whispered, broken. Kaner's answer hit him deep. "Because she never left. She's been here the whole time, watching, waiting. And now the final piece falls into place. Mehmet's lungs burned for air. The nightmare twisted, alive, fierce. He barely heard the last words before the black swallowed him whole. You're not just the key. You're the lock, the secret. The monster. Silence. Then, the hospital lights flickered back on, harsh and broken. A voice, trembling but clear, cut through the tension. Welcome home, Dad. But this time, it wasn't Mehmet's. Somewhere near the door, a quiet chuckle twisted cold and cruel. And in that instant, everything shattered. Because standing there, stepping into the light, was Sarah. But not the woman Mehmet thought he knew. Her eyes gleamed, empty, hollow, and beneath that calm, a terrifying truth waiting to explode. And then, in a breath, she smiled, slow, wide, like a predator claiming its prey. Did you really think the nightmare was over? The room fell silent. Then the unmistakable sound of a phone vibrating. Mehmet's own, buzzing, relentless. He reached for it, hands shaking. The screen lit up with a single message. Look again. You've been lied to by all of them. His heart slammed. Shouts erupted around him. Gasps, cries, disbelief. Zeynep backed away, eyes wide, trembling. Kaner's grin stretched crueler. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper, venom dripping. You never were the father, and I never lost her. Then, without warning, a figure burst through the door. Someone none of them expected. Detective Matthews, eyes blazing, a cold smile playing on his lips. But behind that smile, a gun. He fired. Chaos exploded. Blood splattered. Screams filled the room. And Mehmet's last thought, shattering in the darkness, the real monster was never who he thought it was. The nightmare had just begun. The hospital lights snapped off. Total darkness. A single voice echoed, shaky but sharp. Welcome home, Dad. Silence. Then, chaos. A deafening crash shattered the black like a bullet. Glass exploded, metal slammed, breaths caught in throats everywhere. Mehmet's lungs burned as the hospital door burst open with savage force. Footsteps thundered down the hallway, too many to count. Voices yelled, sharp commands. Tires screamed outside. Everything spun. He tried to focus, but the darkness clawed at his vision. Then, searing pain exploded in his chest. He looked down. Blood, bright red, hot, sticky. A blade. He gasped and crumpled back. Kaner knelt beside him, voice low and venomous. You think I'm just a madman with secrets? You're all puppets. Puppets in a game you don't even see. And me? I'm the one pulling the strings. Mehmet's vision blurred. Darkness crept in like a cold wave. Why? He whispered, broken. Kaner's answer hit deep. Because she never left. She's been here the whole time. Watching, waiting. And now, the final piece falls into place. His lungs burned for air. The nightmare twisted. Alive, fierce. He barely heard the last words before the black swallowed him whole. You're not just the key. You're the lock. The secret. The monster. Silence. Then, the hospital lights flickered back on, harsh and broken. A voice, trembling but clear, cut through the tension. Welcome home, Dad. But this time, it wasn't Mehmet's. Somewhere near the door, a quiet laugh, twisted, cold, and cruel. And then everything shattered. Because stepping into the light was Sarah. But not the woman Mehmet thought he knew. Her eyes glowed. Empty. Hollow. Beneath that calm, a terrifying truth waiting to explode. And then slowly, a smile. Wide, predatory. Did you really think the nightmare was over? The room fell silent. Then, his phone buzzed, relentless. He grabbed it, hands shaking. The screen lit up with a single message. Look closer. You've been lied to, by all of them. His heart slammed. Shouts erupted. Gasps, cries, disbelief. Zeynep backed away, wide-eyed and trembling. Kaner's grin stretched crueler. Sarah's voice dropped to a venomous whisper. You never were the father, and I never lost her. Then, without warning, the door burst open. Someone none of them expected. Detective Matthews, eyes blazing, a cold smirk playing on his lips. But behind that smile, a gun. He fired. Chaos exploded. Blood splattered. Screams filled the room. And Mehmed's last thought, shattering in the darkness, the real monster was never who he thought it was. The nightmare had just begun. But then, a crackling, static-filled voice broke through the madness, crackling from Mehmed's pocket. His phone, alive with life despite the chaos. A new message, urgent, raw. Stop. Look. It's not who you think. She's the pawn. His fingers trembled as he read it. Suddenly the world tilted sideways. Sarah. The real monster? No. It was Zeynep, his daughter, his girl who never ran away. She wasn't the victim. She was the architect. Everyone froze. The room sucked in a breath so heavy it felt like a roar. Slowly, Zeynep's face twisted. No fear, no confusion, only cold, hard calculation. She stepped forward and whispered, so close it burned. I never wanted to come back, but the game's mine now. The lights flickered. A dark smile crept across her lips. The nightmare? It was just shifting gears, and Mehmed was trapped, inside a maze with no way out. The real horror? It was only just beginning. The buzzing phone slipped from Mehmet's trembling fingers. Everyone in the room froze. Zeynep's face twisted. No trace of innocence there anymore. Cold, calculating, her eyes sharper than steel. I never wanted to come back, she whispered, voice low and deadly. But the game's mine now. The flickering hospital lights cast jagged shadows that danced over her face, twisting into something monstrous. The room held its breath. Mehmet's chest heaved, his heart pounding like a drum in his ears as if trying to break free. The nightmare had shifted. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was a fight for truth that could shatter everything left standing. He swallowed hard, taste bitter, sweat stinging his eyes. The silence stretched, unbearably thick. And then, without warning, Zeynep took a step forward, a wicked smile creeping across her lips. This is far from over, she said. The chaos finally erupted. Detective Matthews lunged, but Sarah stepped between them, eyes blazing with fierce, protective fire. No more lies, she hissed. We end this now, together. Kaner snarled, backing away, but before he could vanish into the shadows, sirens wailed down the hallways. Police flooded the scene, flashing badges and stern voices filling the room. Mehmet stumbled to his feet, clutching his side, the pain sharp but fading beneath the rush of adrenaline. Zeynep's gaze locked with his, a mix of defiance and sorrow battling in her expression. I never meant for it to go this far, she murmured, voice cracking. But the secrets, they ate me alive. Sarah's knees buckled, tears streaming freely. Mehmet moved to support her, the family fractured but alive. Detective Matthews was pulled away by officers, cuffs snapping. His smirk faded into something cold, defeated. Outside, the townspeople of Cedar Harbor had gathered, whispers rippling like dark waves through the crowd. "The Alcott family has finally broken," an elderly neighbor muttered. The local news crews swarmed, lights flashing, catching every angle of the night's madness. The headline would soon scream from every screen: "Lost daughter returns, a family's dark past unveiled." Mehmet stood on the hospital steps, the salty ocean breeze mingling with the chaos inside. His body ached, but inside, the tangled mass of pain, betrayal, and relief was beginning to unravel, thread by fragile thread. He looked up at the starless sky and whispered, voice raw, "Maybe now we can finally start to heal." But as the first light of dawn crept over Cedar Harbor, a soft, "Not everything is what it seems." His fingers tightened around the device, heart sinking. The nightmare might have paused, but it was far from over, because in the shadows, something was still watching and waiting. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for the channel and not miss the exclusive stories coming your way. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm and make sure more incredible stories reach you. Don't wait another second to share this video with at least 5 friends who desperately need to see this shocking ending. I want you to flood the comments with your reactions, theories, and everything you're feeling right now. Only true fans understand the power of these actions, and you're one of them. Do it now.